Now, the 75th anniversary of what is known as the Trinity explosion, the world's first nuclear weapon test, comes as tensions over nuclear devices intensify. Bombs in Nagasaki and Hiroshima are believed to have killed up to about 200,000 people, with many of those victims succumbing to radiation poisoning in the weeks that followed. Ore Onile takes a look back at this day in history 75 years ago and its effect in present day.
It was 1 a.m. on the 16th of July 1945 when J. Robert Oppenheimer met with an Army Lieutenant General, Leslie Groves, in the parched landscape of Jornada del Muerto, Dead Man's Journey, a remote desert in New Mexico. A group of engineers and physicists were about to detonate an atomic device packed with 13 pounds of plutonium, a nuclear weapon that the government hoped would bring an end to World War II. The top-secret test was heard and seen for miles. The goal of the test was to see if the military could harness plutonium into a weapon that would destroy whole cities, but the effects of radiation were not well understood by most scientists on the project at the time, and the preparations that were made to keep civilians safe reflected that ignorance. Some scientists on the project worried that they were about to light the entire world on fire. Others worried that the test would be a complete dud. Mr. Oppenheimer, who was tasked with designing an atomic bomb for the Manhattan Project, had not slept. At 5:29 a.m. local time, the device exploded with a power equivalent to 21,000 tons of TNT and set off a flash of light that would have been visible from Mars, according to researchers. It was the first nuclear test in history. Less than a month later, the United States would drop a nearly identical weapon on the city of Nagasaki in Japan. The bomb, named Fat Man, fell 3 days after Americans dropped a uranium bomb called Little Boy on Hiroshima. Both weapons immediately killed tens of thousands of Japanese people and forced Japan's surrender on the 14th of August, bringing an abrupt end to the war. Since the Trinity test 75 years ago, at least 8 countries have conducted more than 2,000 nuclear bomb tests. More than half of those tests have been conducted by the United States, a legacy of the Trinity explosion, as the United States and several other countries have continued to refuse to ratify the treaty prohibiting nuclear weapon test explosions. Mr. Oppenheimer said a Hindu scripture ran through his mind at the sight of the explosion. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." The government never conducted a full investigation into the effects of the radiation, even after the communities downwind of the blast saw an unusual spike in infant deaths in the months after the explosion. This is according to Joseph J. Gonka, a scientist and one of the authors of a 2010 study about the effects of nuclear testing for the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. In the upcoming season of presidential politics, the nuclear question belongs at the top of every candidate's agenda. It belongs at the center of every forum and at the heart of every voter's decision. Action is needed before the W76-2 and its successors teach a post-Hiroshima planet what nuclear war is truly all about.
And now we have energy consultant for cross-boundary energy, Femi Faduba. He's joining me now from London via Skype. Femi, thanks for joining in. It's good to have you there.
Yeah.
Now, first question, have we, 75 years after, have we learned any lesson? Has the world learned any lesson from what happened 75 years ago?
I'd say yes and no. I think at an all-time high, we had 70,000 nuclear warheads on this planet, and now it's come down to 3,700. So it's a significant decrease in the level of devastation that we're able to inflict on humanity. But even with 3,700 warheads, we could still destroy the planet and wipe out mankind as we know it multiple times over. So good progress, but still a long, long way to go. The ideal number is 0.
Do we need the warheads? Do we still need to be talking nuclear war? I mean, realizing what happened, how devastating it is, and I dare say Hiroshima and Nagasaki still suffering one way or the other from what happened 75 years ago. Should we still be talking in this direction?
Well, you have two camps of beliefs, I think, on this. So you have the people who say mutually assured destruction is a good thing. So this idea of MAD, mutually assured destruction. As long as we have enough people with nuclear warheads, everybody is too scared to react to the others. It almost acts as a deterrent. The fact that everybody, a large number of nations have nuclear weapons. Obviously, if only one nation had a nuclear weapon, then you have complete asymmetry in power. But I think it's not coincidence that MAD is also the word mad. It feels like an unstable equilibrium to say give everybody these incredible weapons that can inflict, as you saw in Hiroshima, that 80,000 people died instantly, 200,000 people over time. That weapon was around 20,000 tons of TNT equivalent. Nowadays we have weapons which are around sort of 50, 60 million tons of TNT. And so, can we be trusted with these weapons? I think it's difficult to say, but it obviously feels like it's a massive existential risk to keep them around.
Can you speak on why the treaty hasn't been ratified all this while?
Well, I think you have incredibly powerful interests at heart. So to be very clear, that the vast majority of weapons in existence today, active nuclear warheads, are owned by the US and Russia. And that is an extension from the Cold War, where both nations built up an incredible stockpile of these weapons. And so you still have an issue here where I think both nations are reluctant to give up their power. I know during the Obama administration, it was one of the big agenda items, that disarmament. But since that administration, and even, I believe they didn't make a huge amount of progress, but even since then, that is no longer the biggest priority. And you have major nuclear nations not keen to come to the table, unfortunately.
Femi Fadugba, thank you so much for being part of it and sharing your thoughts in this direction. Thank you very much.